Welcome to the Underground, the Steel City Underground, the black and gold standard for Pittsburgh Steelers coverage. Now, here's your host, Joe Kuzma and Brian E. Roach.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Steel City Underground podcast. My name's Joe Kuzma. To my side here, my colleague and pal, my cohort and co-host, one Mr. Brian E. Roach. Brian, I always ask, like, we're about to, start recording, the little red light. We're about to go live. Well, not live, but, like on air, the recording light's on. And I'm like, how are you doing? Are you ready? And you're like, I'm ready, Freddie. And I have no idea who Freddie is. Who's Freddie and why is he ready?
Freddie is Freddie Mercury, and he's always ready.
He's always on it.
He's always on it,
I hear a little.
He's just a little stiletto of a man.
Oh, will he rock
Scaramouche.
you? Will he rock you because they are the champions? I don't know. So.
I don't know, but he makes me want to ride my bicycle.
I love it. Feeling a little under pressure with those comments.
Yes, indeed.
We could do this all night.
But I'm always lazing on a Sunday afternoon, so deep cut. Well
played. Mamma mia. Anyway, and we already referenced that song once, but there's enough, I think, of Bohemian Rhapsody to go around. If nobody knows what the hell's going on, if you are new to this show by any means, fast forward to about the 5 or 7 minute mark as we continue to, that might not be that long actually, but somebody was like, I had to wait. It was a whole 3 minutes until there's football content. Yeah, thank you. Do you ever listen to any other shows? Like I hear this Sirius XM NFL radio. If somebody's talking about a story in their past, just because it's football related doesn't mean it's has to do with what the subject is here. Like the Steelers going to travel to Houston for their second in a row away game, week 4 of the NFL season here. No, it doesn't. Just because they're talking about something that's ancient history, maybe it relates. I don't know. But I've heard everything on fantasy radio from talking about chicken McNuggets, the coffee. We've talked about coffee and chicken nuggets here too. So, but let's have some fun with it. You know what I mean? And if there's something that somebody wants to know that's outside the football realm, drop us a line. We have the email. It shows up at the very end of this program, fan mail or fans or whatever at steelcityunderground.com. I got to see I don't even remember what it is. And then there's the text line that we also have that's available. So you could pick myself and Brian's brains. Please not too hard. They're easily accessible because neither of us have that much hair left, but please be kind. Or we have the contact form over on the website. We have social media too, but there are people, people come at us sometimes, Brian, in the social media. They do on YouTube too. Those Browns fans got real quiet real fast from, after the week 1 show. But they like playing, and I'm like, and it's just it's not even to me. I think it's just, it says Steel City Underground. They send a message or they comment on the posts and they're angry. They're like, fire Matt Canada. Not if the defense doesn't play well. They're shouting at the clouds. I don't own the Steelers. I don't have any power to change any of this stuff. All I can do is tell you my opinions about it. It's funny.
Thank you, everyone, for joining Joe's therapy session, where we will allow Joe to vent and rant about things he can't control.
I'm not really, it's not a therapy. It's like the therapy session for them. Because I'm not saying some of these things. It's hilarious.
It's your therapy session because you're not good at being the therapist for Steelers Nation.
I will not allow certain things to be dragged. That's why we're here, is because we just don't go with the flow of what everybody else. I got to tell you about this. There's
a flow.
I think there's a flow. I don't know if he's a viewer or not. And if he is, he could jump in the comments. There's a gentleman, young guy, that I bump into all the time at Sam's Club. And he talks to me because every now and then he might have his Steelers lanyard or, I don't know, whatever they're allowed to wear with a blue vest or whatever. Do they really have a uniform besides the vest? I don't know. But he was talking to me the other day. He was like, oh, you think Matt Canada needs to be fired? Oh, that was a really close game the other day. And I'm like, dude, hold on, back up. And then we talked for a little bit and it's like the light bulbs are going off. It's like, don't follow the flow with everybody else. Sure, you can criticize. do we have to preface this? Maybe we put a little disclaimer at the bottom here that says we do not endorse or whatever. Like these
we do not endorse, support, or approve of Matt Canada.
Like clearly, we're okay with getting. He could be upgraded. We don't. There's clearly. What is it? You talk about glass half empty, glass half full. There's maybe like a medicine dropper of good that we've seen to outweigh the rest of the bad. Yeah, the fresh sarcasm. Well, what you said about the endorsement was not sarcasm, though.
No, that was true. Okay, here you go. I completely endorse Matt Canada and think he is awesome.
Fresh sarcasm sign. I have to put that like in the audio like subtitles for our audio listeners out there. But yeah, I was talking to this guy, and he's a very cool dude. He knows I'm a Steelers fan. We're talking. You see Steelers fans, and you talk about football, right? Tis the season. But I was just like, I wanted to roll my eyes. I was just like, oh, where did he pick this up from? Like,
I got a different take on this. Now, see, I see Steelers fans, and you know what I do? I go, up, and then we walk by. That's it. Sometimes we might do this.
Yeah.
Other times we might just go, peace.
Yeah, that's a curious thing for the comments section, though. It's like if you bump into other Steelers fans, what type of conversation do you engage with them? Because, they may not be realizing, for example, that the big fat punter, Presley Harvin, has a hurt hammy. He might not be kicking this,
an ouchie.
But they might not even know who wears number 6 on and what his name is. They might not even realize that there's a punter. Like there's fans that.
All right, I got to ask you something.
Mm-hmm.
You think that people don't talk to me because of this?
Surely. I mean, think about it.
I'm just saying.
Like, okay, I wear a ball cap all the time when I'm on the show. Typically, I wear them, but not all the time. I have a shaved head, right? I'm 6'5".
Is that what they call it?
30 to 240.
When you don't have any hair, they call it shaved?
By choice, I've shaved my head. They say, as the saying goes, less hair, more head, my friend. Anyways, so yeah, you've been married a while, so maybe these things don't apply. There used to be
not at all.
Hey, don't shoot the messenger on this one. There was one that someone used to defend all the time because they like to date the younger women. They're like, divide your age in half and add 7. I start doing some of that math. When you're a younger guy, that don't apply. That don't work. Well, in the same instance, my less hair comment doesn't work when you're an older married man either.
That thing you just said never works either, by the way. If I divided it, let's pretend, okay. Maths with Brian here again.
Uh-oh.
Let's pretend, maths with Brian, that I was a single 60-year-old dude, right? Divide my age by half, 30, and add 7, 37. A 37-year-old woman would kill me. Are you kidding me? No, it's not. No, it's out. No. Yeah.
That's in my age bracket, not with the formula, but it works within my, default dating profile, so to speak. Or did, I should say.
Give her plus or minus 5 years to your age is what I say. Forget it.
Okay.
Plus, I like to have conversation, right? What am I going to do? Sit there and talk to you? You're going to talk to me about TikTok?
No.
Screw that.
They're going to talk to you. They're going to talk to you about, they're going to ask you all sorts of football questions because they're very interested now. The young ladies are very interested in football because of Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce. I'm getting all these videos are pretty funny. Like there was one, like, so this guy's like trying to relate like to everyone who listens to music or whatever to football now, because they're like, well, see, Travis Kelce plays in the same stadiums that Taylor Swift does her shows in, and the football players play there, although there's not as many people that come to those because they could use like the whole field to sit people. It's hilarious.
I'm just going to tell you this. You could not put together two people I dislike more.
Oh, we might. That sounds like a challenge, though.
No. Travis Kelce is the new Gronk for me. In other words, the tight end that I dislike the most because he's just an ass. And I don't even want to mention that other person because.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll leave it at that because I'm really trying to stretch this to see how far we could go without talking about anything. The only thing we mentioned so far.
It's been over 10 minutes.
Presley Harvin. It's close.
Talk about Presley Harvin.
Harvin. Well, we'll get there with the injury report. Let's talk about some vitals about the game some statisticals. Let's see. I got to pull it all the way up. I should probably mute Brian as he continues to get bombarded. There's Brian right now. He's not even he's absentee. He pops in on the screen. Oh man. So you just get nailed with it seems like your timing, we can never line up right. So if we would have did this earlier, despite it being raining, the landscapers were out here mowing grass and they've completely left ruts and everything in it. Just anyways, the condo life. So, anyways, some vitals about this game. This is a Sunday, October 1st. We're now in October. We waited for football to start forever. And now, it has arrived, and we're in full stride. So, Sunday, 1:00 game. This is the first game this season that will be aired on CBS, and it is a very small window if you use the old rabbit ears antenna, rely on the local channels deal, okay? So, if you don't have the Sunday ticket or the NFL Plus for using on your mobile phone, and even then, I think it only shows you the local games. It doesn't show you everything like Sunday ticket, right? It's just the local games. So
I have Sunday ticket on YouTube. I can get anything I want.
That's that Sunday ticket. I'm talking about the NFL Plus.
Oh, the Plus. That's not Sunday ticket. The Plus. Forget the Plus.
Yeah. So, anyways, there's the map. If you happen to be not able to see this because you're listening in,
what's green?
It's orange.
No, what's green though?
I don't know what green is. That's not the point of this. The orange is what the Steelers are. I'm gonna have to bring it back up because you're throwing me off. Okay, the green. And it's all over the map right now. Literally.
I'm sure it's the Eagles. But,
the green is the Raiders and Chargers, and it's the late game. So everything else is the 1:00 games.
Explain that to me.
Yeah.
Why in the Philadelphia area is it Raiders, Chargers, two teams that are as far distant from that side of the country as it can possibly be?
I don't know, and that's who you'd normally get without the Sunday ticket. So Fox must have the doubleheader window.
Dumbest thing I ever saw in my life.
Yeah, anyway, Fox must have most of the double headers. So
I don't care because I got Sunday ticket, so screw it.
Yeah, for everybody who does not, you're going to have to find some clever means. But if you're in most of West Virginia, including that panhandle up through Wheeling, up to Pittsburgh, Charleston, out to Scranton. If you're in Harrisburg, no luck. DC, Baltimore, Northern Virginia, along with most of Ohio, with the exception of Northeast Ohio, Youngstown, and you're talking about Steubenville on down to Athens and stuff like that. You're going to get the Steelers game at 1:00 against the Houston Texans. And I'll prop this up again. And if you are anywhere outside of Dallas, you will also get the game as well. And I mean, everywhere.
What's yellow?
Outside of Dallas. The yellow game is Denver and Chicago, which that makes a lot of sense. Denver usually gets the whole almost Tornado Alley sort of kind of. They get the mountainous.
I was curious
area.
Why did Michigan and Wisconsin were getting it, but now it makes sense. All right.
Well,
Chicago
Brian, just to let you know too, I'm over in Southern Ohio area. Indianapolis and Cincinnati get that same Chargers Raiders slate for whatever reason. It probably has to do with a local Fox game and Fox having a doubleheader or something like that. I didn't actually look to see what Fox had early.
Yeah, but they couldn't have had a better game than
Cincinnati,
the Chargers Raiders.
Yeah, Cincinnati, Tennessee. I don't have it as large. Hold on a second. I could bring it up. So that's what it is there in the kind of the bluish there. So on your other channel, as you're watching in the Pittsburgh area, you're going to get the Cincinnati game instead. Cincinnati and Tennessee Titans. And I'm going to try it at the same time. At the same time, too, though, at 1:00 on the other CBS stations are the Browns and Ravens. So that's a pretty good window to start at 1:00.
We should talk about that
football.
Game.
We could talk about that game. We need to talk about our own game first.
Oh, that's true. We should probably talk about our game.
But no, that'll be good for the Steelers. Are currently, by virtue of tiebreaker, number 1 in the AFC North and can hold on to this position with a win against the Houston Texans, who are entering the game 1-2. They are coming off their first victory of the season against the Jacksonville Jaguars, who they routinely kind of have their number. That's a divisional game that they just played. I am curious, though, that's going to be something. Could this be a trap game? Because are they looking ahead Baltimore Ravens, whatever they end up doing, they got to go to Cleveland. Cleveland just had a home game, so they have a 2-game homestand here. They just beat the Tennessee Titans. They're playing good defense. The Ravens just fell to a Colts team that wasn't very strong. So that's going to be an interesting dynamic in the division.
What you're saying it's a trap. It's a trap.
It could be.
Is that what you're saying?
If anyone's looking ahead,
it's not. There's no such thing as a trap game.
We say that all the time.
There is no such thing. It's the dumbest thing I ever heard of. No such thing.
We do say that quite frequently, right? That there's no such thing as a trap game, but people will still say it could be a trap game. Is there such a thing as a trap game this early in the season? That ends up being a little difficult to.
There's no such thing.
There it is.
It's a trap.
Admiral Akbar. It's a trap. It's a trap. It's the old Return of the Jedi. So,
look, that guy looks just like you too.
Oh yeah, I know. Because less hair.
No hair. Yeah.
Admiral Akbar of the Mon Calamari. Okay, so we are all over the place with this show. I was telling Brian, I'm like, we'll probably put in on 30, 40 minutes. No, this show's going over an hour for sure now. People were appreciative. We're trying to be a little more sensitive to everyone's time. There's more football to watch on TV versus, me and Brian just yakking about stuff on YouTube. So some more. Let's get to the vitals, the vittles, the particulars of this game. One of it was the time in the kickoff and where you're going to watch it. If you've got the Sirius XM, the Steelers are on 119 or 387, and of course it's on the internet. They have, you just click on it and it's there, or within the app. The Steelers lead the all-time series history between these two teams and have won the past 3, 5-2. And the last time these two teams played each other was 2020. The Steelers won 28-21. That game was played in Pittsburgh. Your referee for this one, Bill Vinovich. I think Bill Vinovich is okay. I knew that, the other night, Sunday Night Football, that was going to be maybe a crapshoot there. Houston Texans are led by first-year head coach D'Amico Ryans. Why can't I find D'Amico Ryans' name on this press release? Because that's it's set up like garbage. But D'Amico Ryans right now, of course, 1-2, which would be the same record as the Houston Texans coming into this one. Mike Tomlin 165-94-2, 17 years with the Pittsburgh Steelers. What else can I say? Last time they were away for this game was a Christmas game, if you remember, on back in 2017. And that was a pretty fun or interesting game. I remember wearing my Landry Jones jersey thinking he might have an opportunity to get in. Wasn't that like a Stephen Ridley game where he ran like a whole bunch and got some TDs and stuff like that as a backup running back? If I believe so, or at least he got in, was the case. So just going off the top of my head.
It's funny. The last Houston game I remember, vividly remember, was the game that I think Kiesel had an interception.
Yeah, there were like 3 touchdowns.
It was like the
halftime.
craziest. Yeah, it was the craziest game ever. Yeah. And I was in Houston in a hotel room watching the game.
Was that Ryan Fitzpatrick playing with the Texans back then?
Might have been.
I think it was. So that's pretty funny. I know people are like, "Oh, what's with all the history lesson? Get on to the new stuff, the good stuff." Okay, we could do that. The Texans went up and they just, like I said, they went over to Jacksonville and just spanked the Jaguars 37-17. Really wasn't even close. Jaguars were blanked through halftime. They were down, 17-0 at half. Then started to kind of come back, and maybe not the best of performances. Trevor Lawrence, he had passed 27 of 40, 279 for a TD and an interception. And I wanted to say that there were some turnovers maybe in this game as well. It's just like some really poor football. Jacksonville got some garbage time points in this game. But when you're comparing these two teams, the Steelers, that is, and the Texans, head to head, let's see here. And I just had it up. I hate when I lose track of everything. So here we go. Kenny Pickett. Of course, C.J. Stroud is like really throwing the ball. You Ohio State Buckeye guy. Played pretty decently. 78-121, 906 yards passing with 4 touchdowns compared to Kenny Pickett, who only has 104 attempt, 689 in the 4 touchdowns as well. C.J. Stroud has not thrown a pick yet this season. He has been sacked 11 times, but the Jaguars did not get to him last week, which we're expecting or anticipating as we get into the injury report, talking to you about what happens with that Steelers defense and maybe that changing a little bit, because now instead of being sacked almost 90 times, on pace for like 90 sacks with the season with C.J. Stroud, now he's down to like 60, which is a little bit still high, but not as manageable.
A little bit
number. Yeah. I mean, like 50s in a 17-game season is probably still too much.
Even Ben Roethlisberger is reading that stat and going, that's high.
I mean, Eli Manning would be more appropriate. Like, Ben had that stigma, but that was through like the Bruce Arians era.
Yeah, it was.
215 sacks in 5 years is not, yikes, and everybody wonders. By the way, Brian, I saw a lot of stuff where people were like actually defending Todd Haley. Like, I saw a meme where somebody did the Scooby-Doo thing and pulled off Matt Canada's face, and it was Todd Haley, and there was like a bunch of backlash in the Steelers groups that I was in. And I was like, thank you, somebody at least like paying attention. But I will say something though about this matchup between these two teams. The Steelers and Texans, like offensively, even though Stroud has all those passing yards, points wise, you've got the Steelers 22nd with 18.7. Houston has 22 a game. They're 18th. Houston has not played the same level of competition necessarily. They did draw the Baltimore Ravens for the first game and then the Colts for the second game. The Colts laid 31 on them. And that was with Anthony Richardson, the rookie quarterback. Baltimore put 25 on the Ravens. Jacksonville was unable to do anything, which I know was disappointing for Jacksonville. The Steelers have allowed they're 19th with 23.3 points allowed defensively to Houston's 24.3, which is 22nd in the league. So they're about even when it comes to scoring and points allowed, which is odd. But I think that's more of a product of who the teams have played. You've got the 49ers and the Browns defenses in the Steelers case. Ravens, Colts, and Jaguars. I don't know. This Jaguar game kind of skewed when you're talking about rankings. Steelers are third in the league with a +4 takeaway differential. They've had 9 over the course of the 3 games they've played. By the way, TJ Watt, I should say too, his 6 sacks are the most by any Steelers individual through 3 games in team history. So he's kind of like just making up stats as he goes along. Somehow the Texans are 6th in the NFL with 271 passing yards per game. The Steelers are now 17th with 208. So they've climbed up, but still running the ball pretty poor. Both teams are. Steelers run for 67 per game on average. The Texans 70, only 3 more. They're 28th and 30th respectively. The Texans being 28th.
You're saying 3 plus 67 is 70?
Yeah.
Maths with Joe.
Hey, maths with Joe, but I'm like, that's math with Joe. Mine isn't like, like that public school education. So I saw that the little like hamster wheel was turning in your head. I'm like, I knew Brian was coming with something there.
With Joe.
And, I did it real quick. I'm almost like Rain Man over here. Anyway,
amazing.
Defensively, the Steelers giving up 235 yards passing as the Texans are giving up 223. Still, those early run defensive games bad for the Steelers. They rank 30th with 151 given up compared to the Texans are also 17th in the league as they are in passing and rushing. They give up 117, so about 35 fewer yards. So this will be a tale of what the Steelers could get going against what is a young defense. But I'm going to talk about some injury reports here real quick so we could get to the Steelers defense on the field against C.J. Stroud, since we talked about Stroud a little bit already. We have a little bit of an early injury report here with the Steelers. We've got some DNPs. We've got some updates. Let's pull them all up. We talked about Presley Harvin. The Steelers added, you may remember Brad Wing. He was the punter for the Steelers back in 2017. Currently, his most recent action in professional football was, I think, with San Antonio, but it was in the XFL. And they brought him in for a tryout the week before. I think that's lit a fire under Presley Harvin's ass and had him punting like really good. And of course, we can't have nice things, Brian. So now Presley Harvin appears to have injured his hamstring. And
now we know why he wasn't putting as much effort into the punts. He's going to hurt himself.
That one, the one that was probably bad. That's probably where he hurt it, probably yanked or whatever. And just to put that in perspective, how does someone stay in the game? Well, they don't have anybody else that can kick for one. Yeah. But you got the adrenaline going, you got the blood flowing. As soon as you come down from that cloud, That's when the pain and everything else starts to settle in. The lactic acid, you got to get the stretching in, the soreness, the swelling, and then you're screwed. So, fortunately, that probably happened later in the game.
Wait, I think that's only if your name's Antonio Brown or Deshaun Watson that you do the stretching and the swelling, and then you're screwed.
No, you get the massage, and then you're screwed.
Oh.
Robert Kraft as well. But I don't know what kind of physical activity that guy does.
Happy ending.
Yeah.
There you go. Happy endings. Yeah.
Allen Robinson showed up on this report with an ankle. He
saw that.
Limited, though, for Thursday. Some veteran rest for Patrick Peterson. Full practice for Miles Killebrew was limited on Wednesday. Full practice on Thursday. A veteran day of rest for Isaac Sumalo as well. As who else was on here with some veteran rest? Nobody else. So we've got Chukwuma Okorafor, full practice after a DNP with an elbow. That was a little concerning when he first popped up. The one that is concerning is James Daniels. Yes. Yep. So his primary backup, if I'm not mistaken, Brian, is probably Herbig, right?
Herbig.
The other Herbig, Nate Herbig, whose name we haven't said very much because the Steelers shipped off Kendrick Green.
Nate the Great, yeah.
Might be seeing. And, of course, Kevin Dotson as well. So those guys are not in reserve any longer. So we may be seeing Nate there. Also on the injury report, Connor Hayward returned to practice full on Thursday after DNP with an ankle. Gunnar Olszewski looks like he may be going through the concussion protocol and then may end up on the transaction wire. I don't know.
Down there at the bottom, did that say Darnell Washington did not participate?
That's right. Darnell Washington ends up on the Thursday practice report with a DNP. That is new and fresh.
That's not good either.
Larry Ogunjobi with his foot perpetually.
Will be LP. Yeah, just LP forever.
So he may.
Or DNP or LP, but he'll play.
I'm not worried about that. Where we got to see, and I don't know, maybe I'll look at the Texans website to see if they have a Thursday update, just because the opponents, like the Steelers, don't always have. Let's see if they have this up to date yet. I do not. I only want to accept cookies if they're chocolate chip. They do have it updated. So let's bring up the directly from.
You know what that disturbs me about? This is just data, right? That's all this is data. And if it's updated on one website, it should be updated on any website.
I think it comes from a database that you didn't have to have a webmaster actually publish this.
No, nobody's going out there and writing in DNP. Then well, if they are, then that's just ridiculous. But
not to mention, it's the same exact formatting on both websites. So you would think it comes from a common area. But
I mean, all these websites are basically the same templates.
Yeah,
because it's just an NFL format.
It does, but it bothers both of us because we come from like that digital IT type of
very aggravating to me. That should not happen.
It does. That has bothered me for the longest. Like, okay, it's updated, and you'll actually see if we scroll down. Oh, they do have the Thursday ones updated on the Texans website. I was going to say it's probably the inverse where they don't have the other team. So, to bang through this a little bit, you have 3 offensive tackles that are probably not going to play for the or maybe in question to play for the Texans.
Well, let's see. Fant
Josh
was
Jones.
Full-time. Who's the other one?
Laramie Tunsil. So Laramie Tunsil and Josh Jones. Fant was limited, but he's going to be there. And they may have. Hold on. I want to say there are 3. Is there somebody here that's on the old injured reserve, whatever? Yeah, they had a Titus Howard. They had 3 different tackles. I don't know to what degree their participation actually is with their team. They also have a guard, a center. Some of these guys might have been reserve injured. It makes me wonder. They had like 5 or 6 linemen that are on their injured reserve. So what you're going to end up with their depth chart. So their starters, Brian, Laramie Tunsil and his backup, Josh Jones, are both the left tackles, probably out for this. So they've got to slide somebody else over. Josh Jones was the primary backup to George Fant, who was dinged earlier in the week as well. And it's gone. It's just George Fant by himself. And
why even have another tackle? Just don't put no one out there. Just put no one out. Play with 10 guys. The hell with it. And let Alex Highsmith enjoy a nice game.
Well, if you want no one to be out there, that could be one of the starting left guards, which is Kendrick Green, who's also the backup center for this team. He is a starter. on this roster, and you round this out with Shaq Mason and then Jarrett Patterson. This is not the strongest offensive line to begin with, where then you have a little bit of subpar play mixed in there. It's why they struggle to run the ball. It's why C.J. Stroud was sacked 11 times in the first 2 games. I don't know what Jacksonville was doing last Sunday, but when you're talking about T.J. Watt, who leads the NFL, I believe, with 6 sacks, I know Myles Garrett got like 3 or 3.5 against the Titans last week, but he did not ascend to the leaderboard there. And you have Alex Highsmith. By the way, T.J. Watt, and Defensive Player of the Month, right? AFC Defensive Player of the Month.
Well, congratulations, TJ.
Yep, and Alex Highsmith had just won the weekly award.
Defensive Player of the Week, yeah, he did.
Before that. And the Steelers, the way they're creating splash plays on a rookie quarterback, you would think that they may have some success. Now, you look at what's going on with the rest of this injury report. Denzel Perryman, middle linebacker, he doesn't play. That's going to be pretty big, too. Veteran player, formerly of the Raiders. Very good guy there in the middle. Tavier Thomas, corner, DMP. We mentioned Tunsil. Robert Woods returned to practice. He had gotten rest along with Tank Dell. They're going to need both of those guys on board for C.J. Stroud to have some targets. Everybody else was a full practice here. Jonathan Greenard, defensive end. Shaq Griffin, corner, returned to practice. Shaq Mason was limited early as well with an ankle. That was that other starting guard opposite of Green. 2 safeties, I believe both starters, Jalen Peter and Jimmy Ward, and then Michael Dieter is a reserve lineman. He was limited on Thursday. They have him listed as a backup center. I believe that he floats around as well with a chest injury. So their offensive line's banged up. They rested the wide receivers, and their most of their secondary is also dinged. I mean, this is a game that you would think, as long as the Steelers aren't looking past, I understand that they're playing on the road. I think there's going to be a lot of Steelers fans in Houston. Maybe not as many that were in Vegas. Dome Stadium. So these conditions might actually favor the Steelers, and particularly their defense, who TJ Watt and those guys were saying when they're on the road and there's more Steelers fans in the stands, they don't have the crowd noise. It's actually harder to call the plays to get everyone in position at Acrisure Stadium versus when they're away.
Yes, that makes sense.
Yeah, that's funny, man.
Because, there's that school of thought. You make a lot of noise when the defense is on the field and you shut up when the offense is on the field.
Oh, my goodness. Did you come up with that all your own?
No, they put that whole men at work. Remember they used to put Ben at work?
Yeah.
And you sign up and you just be quiet. Shh, shh,
if you go to games, you need to make noise. Not when the offense is playing. Like, I see people get caught up and they start waving towels when they're on the road. It's like, don't make noise. People are making noise, so they can't hear the calls. They can't hear the silent count when Kenny's out there, James Daniels, and was it Dan? Yeah, it is. No, it's not Daniels. Was it? It was it was Daniels on the right side that was doing it. So if Daniels can't go with the groin injury, hopefully there's some continuity there for the Steelers. So that is something to think about. But will they have that noise? You need to make the noise when the Steelers are at home, when they're at formerly Heinz Field, now Acrisure Stadium, when you got guys like Lamar Jackson the following week, when they go in the huddle. Start making noise then, because they're trying to hear the thing to call into radio up to 15 seconds and then it shuts off. You need to make that noise. Then after 15 seconds, okay, now you get into the false start. Don't let them get the play in. So
I better not test positive. I better finally get myself a damn negative COVID test here, because I'm planning on going to that Ravens game.
It's perpetual.
And if I can't go to the Ravens game because I still have stupid COVID, I'm gonna get pissed off.
Gonna get, or already are? You're like in that territory.
I live in that frame of mind, right?
Always yelling at the clouds, always saying, get off my lawn. But seriously, like, you look at the Steelers, I think for the most part, the Steelers defensively, with the exception of Cam Hayward, who's still out probably beyond the bye week, maybe even a week or two past then, this is a team that they should, you would think, be able to get after the quarterback. Now he's a mobile guy. He can get moving, but hopefully they can get after the quarterback, create some of those sacks, maybe have 4 or 5, and create some of these turnovers. So
I'm actually very encouraged with the play of the linebackers so far, and with Cole Holcomb and Landon Roberts and Quan Alexander, I think that they can have an impact in this game. on making sure that that mobility that you're talking about does not get out of hand. They have to play disciplined. We do have a tendency sometimes, our D-line does tend to not have great gap discipline sometimes. But if we can get those linebackers to do the right job and fill in, and the linemen can eat up blocks the way that they're able to do, they should be able to get after him. They should. If you let him stay upright and if he gets time, we're not going to be happy. I'm just telling you.
Yeah. Tank Dell's been doing pretty good. Robert Woods is a veteran who always seems to produce no matter where he plays. And in fact, I wanted to say that Tank Dell, he had 5 catches for 145 yards last week alone against the Jaguars.
Yep.
Nico Collins is another one that can add some, a little bit of pop there. He's kind of a supporting role. Robert Woods, 6 catches and 50 receiving yards or more in 2 of the 3 games he's played this season. Last time he played against the Steelers, he had 7 catches for 95 yards back in 2019 with the Rams. That almost seems like an afterthought. I even think about him with the Bills, and I don't even know how many other teams he's been around with since. C.J. Stroud, last week, he had a career high 118.8 rating. And he's 5th in the NFL with those 906 pass yards. So he was 20 of 30. That was good for almost 67% of his passes completed for 280 yards, 2 touchdowns, and no picks. So they're going to have to confuse him. They're going to have to create disruption. And I think the Steelers defense is capable of that. I know I've been poo-pooing a little bit on Levi Wallace. Look, there isn't a guy that's here, whether they're playing man, whether they're playing zone. I know there's limited reps where people have seen what they've seen with Joey Porter Jr., and there's calls to get him on the field. He's getting there, and he's going to be out there. This might be a game where you might actually see him a little bit more frequently because there isn't like a true one on this team, I feel.
And there's some familiarity with our boy CJ.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
He knows he played CJ in the Big Ten. Yeah, so he has a better read on him. Some familiarity with his tells, if he has any.
Yeah, so I think this is a get-right game, even if it's Wallace. You get Porter in there a little more. I think Keanu Benton earned some more playing time. I just see Leal's done fine. Ogunjobi's the veteran. I see doing fine. I see Keanu Benton coming in this game. And if he one-on-one against Kendrick Green, he's going to lampoon C.J. Stroud the same way he did with Garoppolo.
He ought to eat Kendrick Green's lunch.
And they're going to try and double somewhere. And if you have Benton out there, Ogunjobi out there, and Leal with any combination of Watt, Highsmith, or
Golden,
Marcus Golden,
or even Nick Herbig.
Yeah, Nick Herbig. They're going to have I think they're going to have a field day. Is it going to be constant pressure? They could just bring 4.
I'm actually going to, I'm shooting my shot here. This is the game Nick Herbig gets his first career sack.
That sounds pretty fair if you ask me. I'm making note. Brian says that he will have his first his first sack. He was close. You may as well give him.
He was close, absolutely.
Golden, I don't think has had one yet, right? Because
Golden had one the last 2 games.
Did he have one? Because he's also drawn a penalty.
Yes, he did
as well. So aside from I really wanted Harvin to be out there and he could be a weapon. He was dropping him in the 20, so hopefully Brad Wing can at least be serviceable.
That's not going to happen.
Because field position is still a big part of how the Steelers were able to bring the pressure that they've brought defensively. I just think with a first-year head coach, I know that DeMeco Ryans, which coaching tree is he off of? Is he another Shanahan guy? Yeah, he's another guy that came from the Shanahan tree, but he's more of a defensive guy. So it's going to be interesting. It will be interesting to see when you line these 2 up. I do think the Steelers defense, you have to edge almost in every aspect, because it's not like the Texans have like this amazing ground game. Dameon Pierce, 2.5 yards per attempt so far this season, 40 carries for 100 yards. He has 1 first down. Devin Singletary, he's got 20 attempts for 70. That's sub 4 yards per carry. Really the only thing that could be, you don't really have CJ Stroud doing that much. 10 attempts.
No.
Some of those are just, aren't designed plays. And not that CJ was really like the big. He's not Justin Fields. If you're comparing
that was the big complaint at Ohio State was that CJ didn't run. They he throws 7 touchdown passes a game, but he didn't run. Damn it.
No, more of a pocket pass type guy. The same way that Dwayne Haskins was. It used to drive me crazy. Rest in peace. When people said the Steelers, they traded for him, they're going to have a more mobile court. No, he's pocket passer. That guy was definitely someone that just stood in and waited. But he may not have the time. He may be seeing ghosts like Jimmy G was. Now,
they need to. That's the thing. If you're gonna rattle CJ, you've got to hit him early, and you've got to hit him hard. Right. And if you do that, CJ, we know this from Ohio State games, right? He'll get happy feet, right? He'll get a little antsy and he'll move a little bit more and he will start to see those guys coming, right? He will do what Jimmy G did and do the peek over to the right every time to see where TJ is. TJs and CJs, there's too many J's in this.
TJs, you got JJs, man. Wouldn't that be something?
Anyway, JJ's getting inducted into the Texans Hall of Honor in this game. So, that's great. I don't, it's nice. I don't really give a crap, but whatever. Anyway, look, if they can get to him early so they can get him unsettled, that if you let CJ get comfortable in this game, the Steelers are not going to be happy campers. I told you as the season progresses, CJ Stroud is going to get better and better and better. And right now we are at an opportune time because their O-line is a shambles, right? And so I don't want to have any of those woman lifts truck off of child events where some guy who's a fourth stringer decides to play at the elevated level of a Hall of Fame, guy and TJ and Alex can't get at him, right? I don't want to have any of that nonsense. We need to abuse these backup linemen. Kendrick Green needs to be on his butt much of the game. So whoever's in front of him, be it Leal, be it Benton, I don't care. People need to be abusing this offensive line. It is subpar right now, and they have to take advantage of it. And if they fail to do so, and they let CJ Stroud get comfortable, he will pick them apart.
I agree with you 100%. And that's usually where people are talking about with the Steelers and will they play down to someone's level. And that's where I was saying, like, defensive line, make sure they get their job done. Because if they could bring 4 and get pressure, which I believe they could do with like a third string left tackle and also with Kendrick Green out there. We know Kendrick Green is definitely not an all-world player. And they're both playing.
He's a fourth string guard.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, that's the left side of their line is just that's just a problem. And George Fant, I mean, I don't know, veteran player, little up there in years. I don't know. Like, he wasn't very strong with the New York Jets from the year before. So I don't know. I did want to mention something too, because we were mentioning special teams. I keep jumping back to it. And that's where I was headed a little bit. I was going to mention that the Jaguars against the Texans. So the Jaguars had missed a field goal, and then they had a field goal blocked. There was a fumble, there was a pick, there's turnovers on downs and everything else, and then eventually the end of the game. So there were a lot of like shorter drives, but pretty much it was the Texans weren't exactly lighting the world on fire offensively, even though like the score was what it was. There was a kick return for a touchdown in this game by the Texans. There was a lot of special teams play. So when you're talking about maybe Gunnar Olszewski comes out of concussion protocol, the bonehead fair catch deal where the Steelers could have had like better field position, he screwed him on the 9. You can't have him like having a ball fly off his face mask like he did against the Patriots early in the 2022 season. If they take care of that business, I think they could take care of a lot of the rest, because the Texans were they're playing with house money for most of this game because of some of the special teams plays that they were able to make. And then they really put the nail in the coffin, like in the third quarter. And then the fourth quarter was just, field goal, touchdown, field goal, because the Jaguars were playing from a position where they were behind. The game script gets thrown in the trash, and the Steelers need to control that. That's where the Steelers were successful last week against the Raiders, was they controlled their narrative for the most part. So special teams, a big deal here. Then you flip the side of the ball. You got the Steelers offense, of course. Can they control this script against a Texans defense featuring Will Anderson? What was he, the second pick overall after C.J. Stroud, the whole draft day thing? So, I mean, they invested some in trying to get this team to where it needs to be, but the Texans only have, through 3 games, 3 sacks on the entire season. Will Anderson, Jonathan Greenard, and Christian Harris are the ones who have created those plays. And you may remember some of these names from some familiarity, so we go through them. You've got Anderson, the rookie, and then Greenard as your defensive ends. It's 4-3 with Malik Collins and then Sheldon Rankins. Sheldon Rankins, a solid player that's playing in the middle of that field. He's an 8-year veteran that's been around the league for a while. Also coming from the Jets from the year before, coincidentally. You have Christian Harris, Denzel Perryman, who may not play, and Henry To'oTo'o as your linebackers in 4-3. To'oTo'o was on the injury report as well. Did I say that or no? I don't recall if he was.
I don't think so.
And look. Maybe he was not. But
he could have been. I don't know.
No, he wasn't. He wasn't. He was not. It was just Perryman. And then Xavier Thomas is their nickel corner. That was the guy who was on the injury report, followed by Shaq Griffin on the injury report, Steven Nelson, who we used to really like in Pittsburgh. There's a familiar name. And then, of course, Jimmy Warren, Jalen Peter, and then MJ Stewart is backing those guys up as far as the safeties. So it's a suspect. It's a secondary that they can get after because of the players.
And he just has to be careful, right?
Yeah.
That he can't make bad decisions. Look, there were balls that were thrown in the Raiders game that could have been picked. We both talked about that, right? And to each other, not on the podcast because I wasn't on the after pod. Zach did a fine and wonderful job of summing up the after game.
Yeah, he was fired up, man.
But as we were chatting during the game, there were balls that Kenny threw that probably should have been picked off and just weren't. Marcus Peters had a pick 6. He knew he had a pick 6 and he knew he dropped it. He cannot make bad choices. He has got to settle that and figure out whether his reads are bad at that time, whatever it is. Everybody makes mistakes, but he's just got to be careful with the ball. This is not a team that is capable of easily making up for mistake-prone football, right? If they make mistakes on offense, they're not a score 37 points team. No. They're just not. So they have to play within themselves, not try to do too much. But I think if they open up the middle of the field, oh my God, this is 3 years in a row we've been saying that. Find ways to get the ball into the right guy's hands. Utilize Pat Freiermuth, in his 4 catches on the season or whatever it is at this point. Let's get that number a little more active. Find ways to move the ball down the field within reason. They're not going to get 70-yard bombs to Calvin Austin every time. They're not going to get 70-yard bombs to, Pickens every time. They have to figure it out. Utilize George Pickens in this game. George Pickens and Calvin Austin should have fire games. They should against this particular defense. They should. Whether they will or not, I don't know, but they should. This is for the offense. You said this before. This is a get-right game. This should be a get-right game for this offense. Like, they should be able to do whatever they want to do in this game, but they just have to try and play as mistake-free as they can. Because if they get a little too free with the ball, they could put themselves in a position where they can't recover from it.
Yeah, I totally agree with you on that. Of course, Derek Stingley is on injured reserve here, so that's yet another player injured that could raise the profile of the Texans defense, but won't be out there. And there was another name that surfaces here. I was checking. I'm like, is he still really? He's on the roster. Is not played or registered anything is all of last year as well. Remember Derek Rivers? This was the guy from Youngstown State, my alma mater, that we all wanted when the Steelers drafted TJ Watt, and he's still out there as kind of the fifth defensive end.
We did not ever want Derek Rivers in the first round.
It's like that Malik Willis thing. And it's like, well, the Steelers really did it because they showed him so much love and attention throughout the whole draft process. So I had to bring him up.
We did not. You might have, but that was the homer in you for Youngstown State. That might have been it.
Yeah, he went in the third.
Not one in the first round.
Went in the third to the Patriots, which I thought at that same time too. Remember, Chase Winovich ended up going later to the Patriots the year they took Devin Bush.
Well, I was gonna say, where's Chase Winovich now?
Give me a second. I'm going to look him up.
Patriots anymore. I can tell you that.
And he was last with the Browns last year, and I'm trying to remember who recently.
As you just said, Derek Rivers,
Miami,
hasn't played in 2 years, right? A snap, other than he's on the team, but he's not playing. So,
hasn't registered anything statistically, defensively, or even I think special teams wise. He's pretty much an inactive.
For all of us who think we know better.
Yeah, it's a crazy world. It could be first or third or whatever round picks. It's pretty interesting. I still think that the Texans are a team in rebuild.
They are.
Yeah. And, this is going to give a lot of people are going to think this is going to be like just, an easy W. I don't think that the Steelers go in there and drop 30 on these guys. Will CJ Stroud score? I think so. They could even strike first blood for as far as we know. I just don't think there's much of a supporting run game. As long as the Steelers' run defense isn't bad, as long as they, what has been prefaced is that they played good, solid running attacks. San Francisco, Cleveland, they did shut down Josh Jacobs. And I would say that the Raiders offensively with guys like Devontae Adams, even Jimmy Garoppolo, Josh Jacobs, who was the one?
Myers.
Jacoby Myers. Hunter Renfrow. They've got a lot of dudes. And I mean, okay, the Texans have Dalton Schultz as a safety blanket at tight end. I mean, that's somebody that they look to get more involved from their end. But otherwise, it's like I don't see much of a supporting cast along with the rookie quarterback and a really porous offensive line. The Steelers should be able to have their way defensively. Hopefully, this sets up good field positions, decent play calling from Matt Canada, etc. And you should see, you got to go with the Steelers win. I think the Steelers are favored. I'm going to look that up real quick as well, just to get what the current line is, Brian. Looking around the rest of the league, though, if they could go, or the division, I should say, if they can climb to 3-1. This is not where anybody had them. This is where people were making fun of us when we made the original preseason predictions. You said this could be a game that could be tough for them. But if they could do this and then handle their business against Baltimore at home as well, and they could be 4-1 going into the bye, who would have thunk it? And just
we did it. We actually had him 5-0.
I think we had him 5-0 because we thought maybe that Brock Purdy wasn't. We didn't think that they were going to lay the egg that they were, and then I had to backtrack and say we have way too many victories on that spreadsheet.
We did say that, and we even went back and said they could certainly lose to San Francisco.
Yeah.
But we did have them 5-0. Look, this is a part of this. I keep looking at the schedule over and over and over again, and I still see a team that can win 12 games.
Oh, absolutely.
And that's just the way I see it. I still feel like that. There's just not enough of the top tier teams on this schedule for you to go, oh, they're going to get crushed. And I'm sorry, but I'm not that afraid of Cleveland. And I have them losing both games to the Bengals, which I may regret having picked that way, especially if Burrow ends up going on IR. Mm-hmm. But hey, they managed to pull off the win against Los Angeles. I don't really know how, but
because Los Angeles played, that was such a bad game, and they were at home. Yeah. They were at home. Their defense played really well. I think they overachieved in that game, quite frankly. It's because LA doesn't have a very good offensive line.
Yeah.
So
let me ask you this.
Yeah.
Who do you want to win the Browns-Ravens game?
Oh, who's the more dangerous team to have a victory in that group? I mean, I think we picked them splitting.
We did.
Yeah. And I do think that the Ravens are getting some guys back. I guess there was an injury to, what's the guy's name that was their center that ended up getting pulled. That might have been the reason he got pulled in that game, too. So they had some problems with their line against the Colts. I mean, I would never... I think we felt when we did this exercise that the Browns have having a better record. Let Cleveland win because the Steelers still have the tiebreaker on them.
I agree with that.
I mean, pound the nails in the coffin of the Ravens, because I think the Ravens overall have better coaching. I think they have a talented enough roster. They don't, that pass rush. Who did they just sign? I said Kyle Van Noy. They just signed now, because I mean, Jadeveon Clowney, he has a sack and a half, and I think he's like second on the team. Like, their pass rush hasn't been very good. Marlon Humphrey's been banged up, so the secondary hasn't been very strong either. Their best player by far is the guy they gave the huge bag for, they traded for from the Bears. If you're the Bears, why do you trade Roquan Smith? It still angers me that they made that trade. And I know the Steelers weren't, because they weren't going to invest that kind of money, I think, in a middle linebacker or inside linebacker. But still, like, Roquan is the thing. He's the guy that makes that whole machine go on that side. And I could just see Gus Edwards has been so-so. The offensive line is so-so. With the Ravens struggled with what the Colts brought. I think that the Browns will lock them down pretty good. I think Denzel Ward in the secondary. I think Grant Delpit is finally playing up to a level of first round pedigree. He's been all over the field. I think they're going to struggle. But on the other side, I saw Kyle Hamilton too. And Kyle Hamilton was a damn force against, granted, it's Gardner Minshew and he's a backup, but he has veteran experience. And they were able to do some things with Zach Moss. So I think the Browns are going to be able to, with, Jerome Ford and even having Kareem Hunt come back. I think they have the edge in that game.
Where are they playing?
They're playing in Cleveland.
Okay, it's Cleveland's game to win.
That game, line on that game is only 40.5. Browns are giving 2.5 to the Ravens. Ravens are plus 2.5. And then the Bengals got to go to Tennessee. I don't know that Tennessee is just
Tennessee's terrible. They're so bad.
They've been able to do anything. If they can't run Derrick Henry, like, what are they going to do? The Bengals might get right and climb to 2-2 at this point.
I expect the Bengals to beat the Titans.
Even with Joe Burrow on one leg.
Yeah,
and that game's only at 41. The Titans are getting 2.5. So they're actually, the Bengals are favored. So, and then you've got the Steelers. This game is 41.5 with the Texans. 41.5 over and under. Steelers are -3, so they're giving 3 to the Texans. There's some people that put the Steelers in the power rankings. Did you see that? They had them like, how high did they have them in that power rankings? I get that they're in the AFC anyways. They have them like 4th, and I get it. They're the division leader, so you don't want to put a division leader probably behind one of the other teams. I was like, I had to squint and like take a double look, because I'm like, you could slide Buffalo and like Miami and, but maybe you're not putting the AFC South ahead of all that. So power rankings, I'm like, please, like, even for as much bias that I have, Brian, I wasn't even buying that myself.
No, you got to put Miami. You got to put Miami, Buffalo, Kansas City, and probably other teams that I'm not thinking of off the top of my head, for sure above the Steelers. It's not even a question. Now I got to think of other teams that are even in the league.
Well, within their own division, you've got 3 2-1 teams between the Steelers, Ravens, and Browns. Miami's 3-0. They're the only unbeaten team in the conference. Buffalo's 2-1. Yep. The Colts are 2-1, which nobody would have predicted leading the South at this point either. And then the only other team with a winning record is the Kansas City Chiefs. So I guess it does kind of hold water there, that you would go with Miami and Buffalo. You're not going to put Indianapolis ahead of the Steelers, so you have the Chiefs, and then I guess you do probably have the Steelers followed by the Colts or something like that. Because Vegas, the Raiders, the Chargers, they're 1-2. Denver's 0-3. They're the only team without a win in the AFC, surprisingly.
What do you do when you drop a 70 burger? Hey, let's trade for Sean Payton so that we can give up 70 points.
After trading for Russell Wilson.
We're going to trade the future of our franchise away for a coach and a quarterback so that we can get embarrassed on national television, I guess. That's just look, I don't even feel bad. I don't like the Broncos. Screw them.
I don't have any ill will against them. This isn't, the John Elway era or anything like that anymore. So, just individually, Najee, do you think the Steelers can get to 100 rush yards finally with combo Najee and Jalen Warren?
I'm just
combo.
Can they? If James Daniels does not play, I'm going to go with no. Okay. But maybe Nate, maybe not Nate. Yeah, Nate. Maybe Herbig is a road grader. Maybe he's going to be a guy that comes in as like, you know what? I'll show you how to run block. But they got to figure out if they do, this is the thing that was driving me nuts in the Raiders game, right? And even, you know how much I hate agreeing with Chris Collinsworth. When they try to do zone runs, the way that they had been set up in previous years, where they were a zone blocking team, they can't do it anymore. But when they play traditional double team blocks and downhill type running football, guess what? They had success.
Yeah. I totally agree. In the play action, so hopefully there's some play action. Maybe
they got to play action if you can get the runs to run right. If you can get a couple runs to break, play action suddenly opens up. You can't play action.
Yeah, they didn't even have big breaks, but at least like 4 yards. Give me 4. Give me 5.
That's all you need. 4 and 5 yards a carry. It's not that you need to run for 27 yards, consistently, or 12s. But I mean, Najee was breaking off 10-yard runs. Jaylen Warren was breaking off 10-yard runs. They were getting 5, 6 yards fairly consistently when they played that style. When they went back to zone, they were getting nothing. And so, it's if they can make the threat of the run realistic, then they can do play action. And if they do play action, I think they can have great success.
Yeah, I will say this much. Travis Etienne went 19 for 88 with a 16-yard long last week. So there's a possibility there of at least being able to run the ball maybe a little bit. And
I think they can. They definitely can. They just have to choose how they're going to do it.
I'm wondering who feasts, though. Is this a George Pickens game? Is this Pat Freiermuth? Darnell Washington, if he's healthy, does he get involved? Do they finally start hitting some of these guys?
Who on this team is fast enough to cover Calvin Austin? Who on this team is slick enough to cover George Pickens?
Sure as hell not Steven Nelson or either the safeties or Shaq Griffin. That's not going to happen.
Look, I give DeMeco Ryans a lot of credit for being a defensive-minded guy, and he'll find ways to minimize things, even with the limited talent he has. I have a lot of respect for him. I think he can do those kinds of things. But, there is also some certain limitation, and there's going to be ways that they, I don't want to say this. If Matt Canada can find a way to put his guys in advantageous positions, that's not a sentence that should be stated. But if Matt Canada can figure out how to take advantage of matchups and can find a way to make the offense less vanilla and more creative so that it's not blatant what is happening, right? And, you can't pick up the play calls. They should have success against this team. This is not a good team. Houston is not a good team. Right? Yeah, they walloped the Jaguars far more than I think, and nobody probably thought that was going to happen, right? The Jaguars are an up-and-coming team. Trevor Lawrence is a golden boy, blah, blah, blah. They're going to be a better team. Oh, they won the division. They were in the playoffs last year. Well, they just got spanked by probably one of the worst teams in the league. But I've said this from the get-go, Houston is going to get better as the year goes on. So I'm glad we have them now as opposed to later.
Yeah. Good point about Calvin Austin, especially if Allen Robinson gets banged up in this too, then you're starting to get a little thin at the wide receiver position. You don't want to have to rely on Gunnar Olszewski. Hopefully he doesn't even get a helmet.
Oh God, please no.
And I will say this, especially since Kenny Pickett had his season highs, almost maybe career highs. He had high 235 passing yards, first 2 touchdown game, and 108.5 was his quarterback rating. So we could look for that as maybe double back-to-back. It'll be a good games to stack if they could do similar things, especially then. We'll see what the Ravens are like, how much of a bloody nose they have after playing in Cleveland and having to come to Pittsburgh. Talk about some real crap schedule for them. So
I am perfectly content with Myles Garrett having a go-off game against the Ravens.
Screw Myles Garrett. Anyways, we're up against it, Brian. Thanks for joining us today, my friend, and go Steelers. Hopefully another victory. That'd be 3 in a row. After everyone thought that the sky was falling, this could be a game that could really show everyone that maybe that preseason hype we go back to maybe just wasn't, all smoke and mirrors. Maybe it wasn't just hype. Maybe this team is starting to grow. We'll see. I do worry about, do they have the starting 5 on the offensive line and some continuity there? Because that could cause some problems even against a team that might not have their full defensive complement there, and that hopefully the Steelers offense again, they could do something similar like they did with the Raiders, control the narrative, protect the football, get after C.J. Stroud. Sounds good to me. 1:00 Sunday over at, I don't even know what they name their stadium anymore. What is
the big giant stadium in Houston?
It's not the Astrodome. It is NRG now. NRG Stadium. So, because it used to be like Reliant. It used to be like
not
Reliant
really good.
Or something. Yeah,
not really good stadium.
Not really good. But it's field turf. I remember they used to have like the trays or something they brought in with the natural grass. So field turf, and we'll see. And if for everybody who gets to watch this, you saw once again, I'll show just real quick. It is the little orange areas that you'll see over in the Pittsburgh area. Spiro Davis and Adam Archuleta are your on the call for CBS. So pretty bad. That's like their like G team. Speaking of which, the G team is out for now. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. My name's Joe. His name's Brian. Peace, folks. Until next time, we encourage everyone out there to be safe, be good, and we'll catch you later.
We would like to thank you for listening and remind our listeners to follow us on social media and our website, www.steelcityunderground.com.